All right, it is time for the fruit of the Spirit number 2. We are in Galatians 5, verse 22, and today we are looking at joy. And a lot of times when we think of joy, we equate it with happiness, right? You have joy, you have happiness, but there is a little bit of a difference when we get to the biblical sense. So here's what it is. Happiness is tied to something that we want or the circumstances we find ourselves in. For example, I'll be happy if I can get that job. I'll be happy if I have this amount of money. I'll be happy if I can have this relationship or this position or this thing. And a lot of times, happiness is kind of short-lived because the shininess of the things that made us happy tends to wear off after a while. And so when you find people that are always chasing happiness, a lot of times they're actually kind of sad and selfish because they're constantly chasing after this feeling that they only get when they get, right? When they get what they want. Joy, on the other hand, is a little different. It goes a little bit deeper than that. And when you look at the Bible, joy actually shows up in a lot of less than ideal circumstances. In James chapter 1, verse 2, James is actually telling the believers that when you experience troubles and trials, you should be full of joy. And he goes on to explain it later because he says that the troubles and the trials we go through, they develop things in us, right? And that's the difference with joy. Joy takes a big picture perspective, right? Joy remembers the promises that are coming, the victory that's already been won, and it doesn't get so caught up in what's happening right now. So happiness tends to get caught up in the moment, and joy takes a wide angle of what's going on. So why is joy important for the Christian? Well, I want to look at two aspects. I want to look at perseverance and appeal. For perseverance, it's like this. If you can't find the joy in what you do, right, the big picture or the reason for why you are doing what you are doing, then you won't be doing it very long. And this applies to a lot of things, your school major, your job, relationship, church, and even life. When you have no joy in what is going on, you get discouraged and you quit. If we get caught chasing the feeling, chasing happiness, then what happens is that when the praise time isn't as good, or the speaker isn't as charismatic, or church isn't as exciting, then we don't want to be there anymore. You really can't find the reason to. And that's why joy is super vital to handle all the ups and downs that come along with the journey that is Christian life. It's from that joy that we encourage others. It's from that joy that we have that positivity and that we can hold on and persevere. Now, for appeal, what I'm talking about is how appealing do we make it look to follow Jesus? As Christians, we're actually God's representatives to the people. And when we talk about Jesus all the time, but we're miserable, we don't exactly sell it very well. And a lot of times the response you get is, oh, you're just as miserable, grumpy, or whatever negative adjective you want to put in there as I am, but you have all these extra rules. No, thank you. But on the flip side, what happens is when they see us, right, they see me and you, and we're going through stuff, we're having the same problems, we're having all sorts of issues and struggles, and our situation is not great, but there's joy. But there's the positivity. But we're getting through it. All of a sudden, those people are like, hey, I'm seeing this. What's your secret? How are you able to deal with this? Because people deep down are craving joy, and they try and find it in all sorts of different things that just don't satisfy them. And so what happens is when we live a joy-filled life, when we have the positivity that comes from knowing the God we serve and the future that is ahead of us, we give the biggest argument for them to try and fill that void with Jesus. Because honestly, it has to be Him. In Psalm 16, verse 11, it says that in your presence is the fullness of joy. When we experience Jesus, when we claim His promises, when we read more about Him and let Him into our lives, we start down the path to true joy. The real joy that survives the tough times and makes other people want to get to know Jesus more. So as a Christian, you can see that joy is super, super important. And so let's spend some time with the source of joy and add some more positivity to this world. I'll see you next time.